Hi, this is another episode of Your Chance to See. I'm Mark Schwartz. This is the series where I am throwing darts at a map to pick haphazard places around the country, doing an expose on their nature, talking to local land trusts and people working on conservation in that area to test the hypothesis that most of us live near some pretty interesting nature. And I'm doing this because an awful lot of nature programming shows us amazing things about the natural world, but also takes us to far corners of the world that often we don't get a chance to go to, giving us the impression that this really valuable nature is way far away from where we live. Whereas if I can throw darts at a map and convince you that there's pretty special nature in all of these places, then that means there's probably pretty special nature right where you live and right where I live as well. I hope you enjoy the series. I'm using the map on that, the broadside of a barn. Hopefully I can hit it, and darts. So let's begin. Northeastern Wyoming. Right up there in Wisconsin. Alaska, we'll take it.
Today, I'm talking to Caitlin Brown of the Three Valleys Conservation Trust that's located in Oxford, Ohio, just about 30 miles south of where my dart landed in New Paris. If we could start by having you tell us a bit about the natural areas you like to go and what you like to see there.
Well, thank you for having me. So, in our region, we're really lucky to have some great parks. There's lots of opportunities for fishing, bird watching, kayaking, you name it, they have it. We also have here in Oxford a handicap accessible boardwalk that we built on our 13-acre nature preserve. So, that allows access for everyone, which is great because a lot of the nature, a lot of people can't see. It's hiking and some steep hills. So, lots of opportunities. And then I also have the privilege to go monitor our easements. So I get to see private landowners and their nature. It's just some outstanding things that we see.
Let's get back to Caitlin in a bit. I also talked to Frances Boyens of the Fernald Preserve. Let's hear from her. Today I'm talking with Frances Boyens of the Fernald Preserve in Hamilton, Ohio. And welcome to the podcast. And I wonder if you could just tell me a bit about the reserve that you work on. You're the manager of the Interpretive Center.
Hey, Mark, thank you. Yes, I am very fortunate to work at Fernald Preserve. And I always say I'm very fortunate because the day I started, I had bald eagles in the front yard fishing. I had a beaver sitting at a wetland right outside my office window. And I had twin deer who were trying to graze right behind our back door. So for me, that was always like the perfect place to work at. So Fernald Preserve is a former uranium processing plant that for about 30 years refined uranium on site. There were ground, soil, and air contamination, and it was part of CERCLA that it was cleaned up. So it cost us 4.4 billion to clean the site. But what we have now is 1,050 acres of phenomenal wildlife habitat. At the time when they finished in 2006, we were the second largest restored wetland in Ohio. So we have amazing waterfowl. We're a birding destination. It's really hard to concentrate out my window on meetings because I can see northern harriers hunt. It's hard to pay attention to computers. So I really can't complain. It's a gorgeous site. But my favorite, and everybody knows that they tease me about this, is the owls. So we get short-eared owls. And if you don't know what a short-eared owl looks like, they kind of fly like a moth. They're kind of flippy, and they have this squished face and make them look like a teddy bear. And they come out late November, and they stay till late February. And they actively hunt every day. And December, pretty much 5:15, you can look out the door and you'll see them. That they will actually hunt on the grasses because they're a grass owl. They love low laying. They don't nest in trees. They sit on the ground. And it's just phenomenal. People come from all over. And there's nothing better than taking a group. I had one of the last groups I took out in December. Half the people didn't even have binoculars. They just, and then, they had the people with the big lenses. So it's the whole gambit. Yeah. But we had people, I'm like, how many have never seen an owl or a short-eared owl? And we had so many people those a life bird for. So I'm spoiled because it's outside my window. One of the things Ohio is unique is we have very strong park districts. We have very strong nature preserves. If you try, you will find within 15, 20 minutes, you can find a county, a state park, something close to your home that is a green space. Ohio, we're very fortunate. There is green spaces everywhere. So Ohio kind of, it's a hidden secret here that people don't know about.
I'm going to get into the weeds a little bit with both Frances and Caitlin on their organizations. Now back to Caitlin to hear more about the Three Valley Conservation Trust. The Three Valleys Conservation Trust does an awful lot of work with landowners on easements. So can you tell me a bit about these easements?
Yeah, so we protect almost 25,000 acres here in Southwest Ohio. We have roughly 220 easements currently. I'd say of our easements, about 80% of them are actually agricultural. That seems to be where most of the funding is available here in Ohio. But we do try to protect like corridors and have adjacent land. Our goal is to slowly try to connect all the rivers and try to protect as much as possible along the waterways. So when a landowner is interested in protecting their land, they come to us and we work with them. So there's two avenues. They can donate the easement, so they're donating the development rights, or we can apply for funding where they get compensated for the development rights. Once the easement is placed, you can no longer subdivide it or develop it besides within the homestead area, which is about 5%. So if these are big properties, you have a big area that you can build in. And these are in perpetuity, so you can sell it. The easement's always with the land, and you have the peace of mind that in the future it will forever be protected.
You have a volunteer program that helps do habitat restoration and weed removal in your Rooter Reserve, but you had other things going on as well. I was wondering if you could tell me a bit about those.
Yeah, so Rooter is our really only open to the public nature preserve. We also have this 13-acre field that had these endangered salamanders. The herpetologist that we work with kept asking for years, please protect this. Finally, we got the landowner in agreement and we transformed it into a bunch of vernal pools, and we had a group come out and plant wetland species. We have that, as well as we have guided hikes, and you get to learn about the property and hike the property, and it's free to the public.
Great. And you also do a book club.
Yes, we have a book club as well. Monthly, they have a different book each month, and they meet via Zoom to discuss the book. There's lots of people interested in nature and getting involved.
I'd be remiss not to mention that Frances also told me about habitat restoration programs that they have going on at Fernald to restore ecosystems. But now I want to direct the conversation toward what Three Valleys is doing with erosion and nutrient management. This is a big deal in the region.
We've been working with this company called Environmental Solutions, and they create these 9-element plans, which then the EPA reviews, and if they are approved, anyone can access them. They're for the public. Once you have these 9-element plans in place, it opens up a pool of funding. We have this really nice program called H2 Ohio, and you can get projects funded to install wetlands, restore wetlands, stream bank stabilization, all these different things that really helps with water quality. In H2 Ohio in particular, really cares about nutrient loads. So your project site has to have significant nutrient loads and proof that your project will decrease those. A lot of our landowners struggle with erosion. Their ag fields are just washing away. So we try to work with our landowners to restore those riparian habitats and create some buffer. We also started a soil health initiative where we're working with our farmers to help increase awareness of conservation practices that they can be doing out in the field, whether it's cover crops, no-till or reduced till, grass waterways, different things that they can get EQIP funding with RCS to get these projects done to help decrease the nutrient loads. We've had some farmers that are really passionate about regenerative agriculture. So our hope is, since we have so many properties that are agricultural, that we can work with our landowners to help increase the conservation value of their property, because a lot of these farms, there's no rules like what they can and can't do as far as farming practices. We don't do that in our easement language. It's more so working with the landowner. So our hope is between that and these water quality restoration projects that we can help, restore some habitat and decrease the nutrient loads going into our waterways.
I'm going to end the segment with the saga of how Fernald Reserve came to be. An interesting story of how a group of really engaged, dedicated citizens pressured the federal government to do cleanup, and then how Three Valleys Conservation Trust got involved to help transform this area into an active nature center and a wildlands. Let's start with Frances talking about the Interpretive Center, cut to Caitlin to start the history, and then back to Frances for more on that story. The Interpretive Center, what do people do there?
In the Interpretive Center, you can learn the story of Fernald. So you can learn in 1951, they started construction. They refined uranium to fuel cores. It talks about the folks that worked on site. It also talks about the cleanup story. We get a lot of high school and college age students that come through Fernald. And for me to share the story with them is always so, it's just awesome. There's no other word for it, because we had a great citizen action group, a group of people that didn't like what was happening, and they stood up and they made huge changes. And it's not always that you could see that so obvious as you can at Fernald.
They found out it was leaching in the soil, so they shut down the operation, and they had, I think it was $4.4 billion for the mitigation. And we were very lucky to get brought in. We worked with Ohio EPA and protected properties that were close to Fernald and the waterways leading into Fernald, and it brought almost $13 million worth of easement funding for these landowners, which was a really great opportunity. And now Fernald has been, all the mitigation is pretty much done and it's open to the public. There's a really cool center that you can go and visit and learn about the history of Fernald. And it's one of the best birding sites in the area. Whatever the restoration they've done, the birds are loving it there. So it's a great site to go if you're a bird watcher.
And you said that the federal government remediated the site, but that it was really the actions of a local citizens group that was instrumental in converting this into a publicly available nature area.
It is. So the story starts with Lisa Crawford. She became the president of FRESH, and she always tells the story that she and her husband and her 4-year-old son just moved to across Fernald. And at the time, it was called the Feed Production Site. And somebody walked out of her well house in full PPE and a protective suit after they tested the water in her well house. And she was like, what? And she couldn't get answers. So that started. So with her and Edward Yoakum, there are so many phenomenal ladies that are still involved that they start asking questions. She always says that she never thought, she's a volunteer manager, she never thought that she would have to stand up in Congress. She would have to meet with vice presidents, with presidents. She would have to petition. She said at one point, now granted, we're talking before cell phones, she was one of the few people that Congress would collect calls from, because she said she was done paying for all the phone calls. She called them that much. So it's a phenomenal story. And when you listen, they still come out to the site a lot and they're interactive with us. And for me, it's always, when we talk to the students, you had a group of people that didn't know anything. And we're very much today like, oh, I can't get involved because I don't know, or it's not my problem, or it's not. They also didn't know. They didn't have the excuses. They just did it. They tell the stories of meeting 3-4 times a week, of taking bundles of paper and dividing it and learning with a dictionary what the words meant and how they worked and how they petitioned. Fernald was one of the first sites that the state successfully sued the federal government. And they also petitioned that we had Fernald Preserve. So part of our mission that we have is to be a place that is for the community, that is restful. It's a healing place for the land and for people to come out. And that's all because of FRESH, the citizen group that petitioned this and did all the work. They joke it was like having a second job because it was so much work. And because Fernald Residents for Environmental Safety and Health, they started in '84 and they were active for about 20 years. That's a lot of time. And they're still there today. We have quarterly meetings, we have annual public meetings. I could call them tomorrow and they would talk to us and answer questions.
Nice.
And to have somebody so passionate still involved after all these years is just, I'm floored.
So that's a wrap. This has been Southwest Ohio on Your Chance to See. Thanks to Caitlin and Frances for participating, and thanks to the Three Valley Conservation Trust and the Fernald Reserve for doing such great conservation work in their region.